Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is True Crime Tuesday yet again. Today we will be talking about the strange and sinister murder of Marlene Warren. Marlene was born in 1950 in Michigan to her parents, Bill and Shirley. She had two sisters and was the middle child. Growing up, Marlene was a very good kid and had an affinity for clowns just like the rest of her family. Now, this family adored clowns so much that they actually had a circus-themed room in their house. Aside from this, Marlene was also an extremely talented painter and was described to be friendly, kind, and outgoing. At the age of 40, Marlene was married with one son, and they all lived in an affluent neighborhood. She and her husband Michael had a few businesses on their names, as well as various properties. Marlene worked as a cargo ship inspector and owned 20 rental properties on top of that. Now, her husband, Michael, on the other hand, owned and personally managed a used car dealership. And from the outside, they seemed like this happy, successful family who was living the perfect life. But in reality, Marlene and Michael were actually having marital issues. At this point in their marriage, the romance was long gone. They no longer felt connected to one another, and even worse, Marlene suspected her husband of cheating. Now, despite having all these marital issues and suspicions, Marlene chose to stay in this marriage for the sake of her son. She carried on with her life and tried to live every day as normal as she could, until May 26th of 1990, when Marlene heard a knock on their door at around 10:45 a.m., only to be greeted by a clown. Now, as I have mentioned, Marlene absolutely loved clowns, and seeing one on her front doorstep that early in the morning really cheered her up. Now, back in the day, something like this was a completely normal occurrence, as singing telegrams were a huge thing, and people would usually send someone to their loved ones' doorsteps for a greeting or a song. Now, this clown gave Marlene some flowers, balloons, and a greeting card. However, as she was admiring these gifts from this clown, the clown then grabbed a gun out of nowhere and, without warning, shot Marlene in the head at point blank range before running off to a white sedan. Now, luckily, Marlene wasn't home alone during that time because her son and his friends were there hanging out. Once these kids heard the gunshot, they sprung up and ran to the door. So they actually got a glimpse of this white sedan, which turned out to be a Chrysler. They also asked neighbors for help, resulting to Marlene being brought to the hospital almost immediately. And in this hospital, Marlene stayed for 2 days before she finally succumbed to her injuries. Marlene Warren was only 40 years old. At first, police had a very difficult time trying to figure out who would do such a thing to Marlene, who seemed very well liked and respected in her community. I mean, she was a businesswoman, she was a mother and a wife. I mean, who would have a motive against her, right? And based on the evidence, this did not seem like a random killing at all, because this person seemed to know that Marlene loved clowns. And knowing this, police knew right away that the person who had done this was someone who knew Marlene very well. And of course, just like in any other investigation, police are going to look into the people who are closest to the victim. So this could be the victim's friends, relatives, or even their spouse. Now, Michael was interviewed by the police. However, they quickly found out that during the time Marlene was shot, He was actually at his dealership, and this was proven by his clients as well as his employees, as well as his attendance records. Now, the police soon started talking to Marlene's parents, who had told them to look into Michael even more. They told the police about the marital issues that Marlene and Michael were having. And they also revealed an eerie thing that Marlene had told them a while back. She told her parents, "If something bad happens to me, Michael did it." They also told the authorities of Marlene's suspicions of him having an affair and how many businesses and properties the couple shared, and most of which were in Marlene's name. And this to the authorities seemed like a motive. So the police looked into Michael a bit further and asked people around. And they discovered that he had a very close relationship with a woman named Sheila Keene, who ran her own business impounding and repossessing cars. So this meant that she and Michael would often work together. Now, these two worked closely together, with Michael selling cars at his dealership while Sheila repossessed the cars that were not being paid on time. And there is nothing wrong with this, as it seemed like a normal partnership because of the nature of their businesses. However, police also found out that these two would often go to business trips together and that Michael was actually paying for an apartment for Sheila. When neighbors in that area of that apartment were interviewed, they were actually shocked to find out that Sheila and Michael were not a married couple. Because according to a few of them, Michael was around so much that they literally thought that he and Sheila were married. However, no matter how hard the police tried to get these two to admit that they had a relationship, they kept on denying ever having a romantic one, and instead maintained that everything that was going on between them was purely business and friendship. The police soon stopped investigating this angle since they couldn't really find actual evidence of a romance going on with Sheila and Michael, aside from the usual hearsay. Now, 4 days into the investigation, the getaway car was actually seen abandoned, and inside the trunk, there were a few paper bags containing fibers from what could be an orange clown wig, the same as the one Marlene's killer clown was wearing. Because of these bags, police were able to track down where the costume, flowers, card, and balloons were purchased. And according to the store owner, a woman with long brown hair came into their store the night before the shooting. They had told this woman to come back the next day as they were already closed for the night. However, this woman insisted that she needed a costume right away. The store owners also told the police that they would understand the urgency had it been Halloween. However, this was towards the end of May, which was quite strange. They let this woman into the store and recall her buying a clown costume, an orange curly wig, and some face paint as well as a fake rubber nose. The police also provided the store owners with a photo lineup of similar looking women, and without hesitation, they pointed out to a photo of Sheila Keene, saying that they were 100% sure that it was her who had bought the costume and gear. Now, the authorities then headed to the next store where the card, flowers, and balloons were bought. And this time, the staff confirmed that 2 hours before Marlene was shot that day, a woman with long brown hair bought balloons, a greeting card, and some flowers. They were also given a photo lineup and identified Sheila right away. And although this already seems like enough evidence, this could all still be a weird coincidence, as there really was no solid evidence tying Sheila to the crime. There were no CCTV footages as this happened in 1990. There were, however, a few strands of human hair, very identical to Sheila's, found inside the getaway vehicle. But since this did happen a long time ago, technology and DNA testing were not as advanced as it is today. Now, another weird coincidence to note was that this car, the white Chrysler, was actually reported to have been stolen a few days prior. And it was actually taken and reported missing from, you guessed it, Michael's used car dealership. Now, what's frustrating is that even though there's so much circumstantial evidence, no arrest was ever made, and this case soon turned cold. Up until 2014, when a cold case unit decided to reopen the investigations 24 years later. The authorities were actually able to track Sheila down, soon finding out that she had actually relocated to Virginia and owned a popular diner with her husband, Michael, whom she married in 2002. And although they waited 12 years after Marlene's murder before getting married, this pretty much confirmed that they were indeed having an affair. Now, DNA analysis on the hair collected from the white Chrysler was also tested, and although this wasn't a complete match, it also revealed that Sheila could not be excluded as a source. Sheila Keene, who now goes by Debbie in Virginia, was finally arrested in 2017 for the second-degree murder of Marlene Warren. Her trial was initially set to start in 2021 but was postponed to 2022 due to her defense attorney's request as well as delays due to the global pandemic. Sheila currently remains under custody of the authorities, awaiting her trial. According to some sources, if found guilty, Sheila Keene could possibly get the death penalty. Personally, I think she deserves to spend the rest of her life in prison, and the death penalty seems like an easy way out. In the end, she got away with murder for such a long time, deprived Marlene's son of growing up with his mother, and got what she wanted, Michael. At this point, Michael and Sheila have been married for 20 years. She got the guy, and if she gets capital punishment, she'll still probably die happy, and that really upsets me. It's just really so unfair for Marlene. And I guess that's where I'll end today's video. As usual, thank you so much for tuning in. Should there be any other cases that you would like for me to cover, please let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section below. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts on this case. Do you think Sheila is guilty or not guilty? Should she get the death penalty or should she just spend the rest of her life in prison? I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on my next video.